age has led to a series of physical anomalies and challenges, including having 10 extra teeth, which had to be removed in a single day, eyesight issues, a stutter, and a lisp, as well as disproportionately large hands, feet, and head. These differences have subjected Junior to regular bullying and isolation from his peers on the reservation, earning him derogatory nicknames like Globe for his oversized head. Despite these adversities, or perhaps because of them, Junior has cultivated a rich inner life centered around drawing. He views art as a universal language that transcends the limitations of words, offering him a means of expression and connection. Junior takes solace in the fact that his drawings, which encompass everything from personal experiences to broader observations about life on the reservation, might one day pave his way to recognition, success, and perhaps an escape from the socioeconomic constraints of reservation life. His aspiration to become a famous artist is notably linked to a desire for mobility, both metaphorically and literally, as he sees art as his ticket off the reservation, a place where opportunities for prosperity and fame, especially for brown people, seem scarce. Junior's relationship with his best friend Rowdy is also introduced, hinting at a complex bond that will be essential to the narrative. Although Rowdy's character is not deeply explored in this opening chapter, it is evident that he plays a significant role in Junior's life, offering companionship amidst the often brutal social landscape of the reservation. Chapter 1, with its blend of humor, vulnerability, and raw insight, effectively establishes Junior's voice and perspective as the foundation for the story. Sherman Alexie crafts a character whose resilience, creativity, and sharp observations invite readers into a nuanced exploration of identity, adversity, and the pursuit of dreams within the specific cultural and socioeconomic context of a Spokane Indian reservation. Through Junior's eyes, the novel promises to tackle themes of belonging, self-discovery, and transformation, setting the stage for a compelling coming-of-age tale. If this video was helpful, please hit subscribe, since we are trying to grow this channel and reach 1,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for watching. This has been another Bookly Crash Course.
Upwork puts the world's best freelance talent right at our fingertips. We need an AI chatbot for customer service. Upwork's AI combs through thousands of freelancers to help match us with the perfect person for the project. Today, a chatbot. Tomorrow,
we're building an app.
Love that for us.
Get a match. Get moving. Upwork.
Distress. Junior's desperate plea to save Oscar, promising to find work to pay for veterinary bills, underscores the dire situation on the reservation, where employment opportunities are scarce to non-existent. The painful decision Junior's family must make regarding Oscar's fate exposes the ruthless grip poverty has on them, underscoring the lack of options available for those living in such conditions. The narrative illuminates the profound emotional turmoil Junior experiences, torn between anger at his circumstances